Welcome back to another great episode of UAP Studies. I'm Jason Gilmet, one of your co-hosts. I'm joined again by Louis Borges. How's it going today, Louis?
It's going really good, brother. Glad to be here and excited to chat with our guest, another distinguished MUFON investigator. And we know all the good work they do. And for those of our guests that don't know too much about MUFON, we're going to break that down as well and give them the background of that. So yeah, I'll throw it back to you and let's welcome our guest.
Absolutely. So today we have Jesse Peak. He's a certified MUFON field investigator for the state of Pennsylvania. He's also part of MUFON ERT, hopefully I said that right, Experiencers Resource Team. He's an investigator for the Scientific Coalition of UAP Studies, which is really freaking cool, with certifications in astronomy, space exploration, space advocacy, mental health, case management introduction to computer technologies, basics of digital imaging, PowerPoint, public speaking, and disposition into investigation. Peak is also a published writer with the MUFON Monthly Journal, EX-13 Bravo artillery cannon crew member in the Army National Guard, where he did his training or at Fort Sills, I should say, Oklahoma. Counselor for 5 years, teaching classes to young adults and Eagle Scouts. He's also the host of UAPs Encounters Worldwide podcast. Jesse, welcome to the podcast, my man.
Yeah, thank you for having me, man. It's an honor to be here and finally have a conversation with you guys. Yes. I'm excited.
It's been a long time coming, my man. Been a long time coming. So basically, yeah, let's talk about your background. This subject, especially when you become a MUFON field investigator, there's got to be something that really pushes you towards that, something that really happened to you, or something that grasps your imagination when it comes down to the subject of UFOs and UAPs. So what was it for you that triggered that for you?
Yeah, I think it's the thing of being in service. I've always been in service my entire life. Starting out with Boy Scouts, I was in there for about 8 years, earned my Eagle Scout. And we constantly help people throughout that time, helping churches rebuild their infrastructure and doing different projects for nature and global warming and different kind of stuff like that. And then I got in the military as soon as I turned 21, and I signed up immediately and was about serving my country and being there for the people that needed it. And once I found out that there was a community for UFOs, man, I hopped on that immediately, because you hear things over the years, and when you're growing up about different people seeing different things in the sky, and it's like, this is interesting, and I didn't have a sighting until a year after being a MUFON field investigator. So I didn't have no sightings or experiences prior. It was just more of the fact that I was interested in the subject and heard about this and took the classes and the training and found that I could be an investigator to help other people in a different way. So it kind of all falls in line,
Right. And what was that experience that you had once you became a field investigator? Was that part of a case, or was this something that happened to you on offhand?
So I was really into the subject. I believe that it's happening. I live with my father, and he was real skeptic about this kind of stuff. And we were actually driving, I think it was a year and a half after I had joined MUFON and became a certified field investigator, that we were driving in the city, and he actually seen some objects in the sky and pointed it out to me. It was 4 gold objects flying in like a 2 and 2 formation behind each other like this.
Right.
And then they formed into a single file and disappeared one at a time. I actually have 2 still photos of it to show people that we actually seen something in the sky that day, and that made him a believer as well as me. And I actually had some electrical malfunctions occur with my cell phone that day. While I was trying to take video of it. I had a brand new phone, probably only a month and a half old. And I tried to take some video, and I don't know if you've seen Skinwalker Ranch, where the phone kind of does that weird stuff and it does things by itself. Well, that's exactly what happened. And, we finally hit a stoplight and they continued to go, and the phone clicked back on. But I had seen the first object and the second one disappear just like that. They didn't fly off. They didn't zoom away. They didn't land. Just gone. And I was lucky to get the 2 still photos of the last 2 objects in the sky. And that made him a believer. And he was kind of blown. I mean, he's 60 something years old. He's never seen something like that in his entire life. And my training, Boy Scouts, military, all that, I've never seen something like that myself. So it was mind blowing, it kind of opened up both of our eyes to the whole subject.
And also, because sometimes you get that as a MUFON field investigator, somebody says, I tried to take pictures with my phone wouldn't work. This actually happened to you, so that puts you in some of these people's shoes, and be able to say, yeah, I totally understand that happened to me myself, right? So it kind of
Yeah,
it gives you that little edge to your investigations as well.
absolutely. And I think people feel more comfortable dealing with someone that has had a sighting rather than someone that hasn't. They kind of get that understanding with each other. So they feel a lot more comfortable saying that, oh, you've seen something too, so I'm not alone. Because the first thing most of our clients and people that report cases, the first thing they say is, you're going to think I'm crazy.
Yes.
That's the first thing out of every one of their mouths. I mean, I haven't heard it's crazy. So and then once you tell them that you've seen something as well, they kind of, that comfort level sets in, and they're like, okay, now I'm talking to somebody that knows what I've seen.
Right.
Do you have any really notable cases of like people that have seen things? You eliminated all the what could be this, could be that. Definitely what it wasn't. But do you have any really like notable cases of stuff that people saw that just kind of blew your mind as an investigator?
Yeah, there's a case I'm actually working on now. There was this, the witness was with her friend and they were remodeling houses. And they were doing this overnight, and they were sitting on the roof about 3 a.m. And where they were, there was a facility that deals with nuclear contents. And they seen this object come from that area and actually fly 20 to 30 feet over their head. Now, in the area, I did find that there was three different drone corporations around them. So I wanted to check with them and make sure that they weren't flying nothing at the night, and make sure nothing that size could be possibly coming from them. And they said they don't fly nothing over 30 feet. So, and this object they said was at least 300 feet wide. It was a large object that flew right over top of them. And then also coming from a nuclear facility, we hear that a lot with Robert Salas,
Yeah.
if you know the name. And so this was extremely interesting to me. I'm still working on it at the time right now. So it's crazy the things that people are seeing out there.
Especially around nuclear facilities, there tends to be a lot of sightings. Even here in Canada, we've recently had some politicians like Larry Maguire point that out, that we don't have that much nuclear power stations or anything like that in Canada, but the ones that we do have seem to have some sightings quite a bit. And the mines seems to be another area where like there's a lot of sightings there as well. A lot of the miners see them, the truckers that go from, that bring the debris or whatever over to another location, they see them all the time as well. So there's definitely something between the nuclear powers, minings, and now water, as we know, is another huge contributor to these sightings as well. Basically everywhere. Let's just say
Yeah.
it. These things are everywhere, right?
Yeah.
But it's just interesting to hear that it's another nuclear facility that this sighting took place. And 300 feet, that is a
It's a
massive,
large.
yeah, that's a massive craft. That's not small. There's no way, if that was a drone, that thing would be loud,
Right.
because even the small drones are ridiculously loud, right?
And that's what she said when she reported the case. She said it was extremely silent.
Yeah.
And she said she had a sense of calmness when it happened, actually. Most people would be in fear, but we know these things can kind of like manipulate our feelings in a sense. We've heard that a lot with different cases. So it was extremely interesting here in a nuclear facility that immediately caught my eye. And then having that calmness with that large of an object flying only 20 to 30 feet above you. I mean,
Yeah.
that whole thing is it's interesting.
Think if it was a helicopter that was 30 feet above you, you wouldn't even be able to stand underneath it from the
Right.
wind. Like you see helicopters land, people are trying not to get their eyes torn out by shrapnel. It's a violent thing. There's a lot of air being moved. So talk about something 300 feet, silent, noiseless, windless. That's a lot to try to digest.
Right. And the fact that these things can manipulate our feelings like that, any normal person would be, you'd be having fear. You wouldn't know what was happening to you. But she
Yeah.
said her and her friend were completely calm. They didn't panic. They just sat there and kind of like in awe, like this is they're making us feel like this is okay to happen. So we kind of look into that kind of stuff too, and especially being a part of the MUFON ERT, which is the Experience Resource Team. I work with experiences on a daily basis and kind of work as a counselor and work them through the process of their experiences. And I hear that over and over again, that during experiences, these ET beings or whatever it is making them feel calm during these experiences.
It's like
Yes.
the threat narrative, Jay. You're always talking about it. You don't see it as a threat, but you've had other people say, well, hey, wait a minute. Something comes to your house, takes you out of your property, does what they want with you, brings you back or don't bring you back. Is that not a threat? If that happened under any other circumstances, but yet most times it's a benevolent feeling.
Yeah.
You know, we interviewed Randall Nickerson, who made that aerial phenomenon movie about the school sighting in Africa. And
Right.
all the kids, even though it was a mass sighting, they all had a one-on-one experience with that entity. They felt like they were directly communicating, not as a group, but one-on-one.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, it gets crazier the more information you get on this kind of stuff, right? And how they actually communicate with us. And when you get into it, for us, it seems like just another interesting story, but people kind of on the outside world of this field, they still have a hard time with the abduction phenomenon for sure.
Especially with kids. Like if you think about the kids and experiences that they have, we were talking about the aerial phenomenon one. I have two kids, 10 and 12. I can't talk to them both at the same time. The minute I talk to one, the other one's not paying attention, or if I'm trying to get them both, like, who did this? And they're both not paying attention. So the matter that this little entity was able to get 60 school
Yeah.
kids to pay attention to what it was saying,
Yeah.
each on an individual level, that's
And they
pretty
took
crazy.
messages away with them. Some of them felt like it was a warning for the planet. Some of them felt like they were being invited to go with them. So they all had unique experiences,
Yeah.
but they didn't feel like they all got the same message, or they didn't feel like an audience to this thing. They felt like a one-on-one, and they
Right.
each had a one-on-one. I think it was 60 plus kids that all went through that at once, right?
Yeah, Preston Dennett did a great job reporting on that. He wrote a couple books of these schoolyard sightings, and he got real in depth with it. I actually interviewed him on my show, and the information these kids got, and it still stands with them to this day. It's built into their memory. They'll never forget that kind of stuff.
And there was even one in the UK as well. There's been a few. It's not like this is an isolated thing. It only
Australia,
happened
Canada
once.
as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This has happened
Yeah.
many times, Maybe they want to communicate with young people. Maybe the young people are less biased and more willing to absorb. And maybe they
Very
think, hey,
true.
if we want to get our message, better indoctrinate the youth for the best chance of that, right? Who knows?
Yeah.
Well, even
absolutely.
the conflict that the kids had back in the day, talking to the teachers about it or wanting to talk to their parents about it. Some of these parents were very fundamental Christians, so the concept of UAPs or visitation, for instance, especially at their kids' school, was beyond them, and they didn't want to address that. And some of the kids ended up getting PTSD because of
Yeah.
it. Right? Was it Emily in the movie?
Yeah.
Emily, I think so. Yeah, and she underwent like this big journey to try to figure out what the hell it all meant, and she's still traumatized in a sense because of what happened, right? And they give her that sense of closure. So, with some of these abductees at first, it seems like the experience is traumatic when they first come back from it, because obviously it's an alien experience. It's not something that you're taken out of something that is common, which is human buildings to a craft that is not made by us, to tables and entities that are not us. That seems very scary. But the fact is that, I even heard, Jesse, of people being tucked back into bed after
Oh,
they were
yeah.
brought back. So have you had anything like that in your reports? Like, have you had anybody get something that was overtly, you could tell there was like some sort of compassion from these entities?
Yeah, I mean, the first thing I think about when we talk about that kind of stuff is the Betty and Barney Hill, because she woke up with her dress put back on her. Same with Barney Hill, and yet she had some, snips out of her dress, some holes in her dress, like something actually happened.
Yeah.
And yeah, we've had people that talk about, they're taken out of their bed, they're flown through walls. They remember being examined on a craft or something like that, and then they're placed back in their bed. And usually clothes are just like Betty had, or on the wrong way, or shirts upside down or inside out. You hear that a lot with different people, and it just shows that they're trying to make it so it's okay. So you get that a lot though when you're working with experiences on an everyday basis.
And what made you want to work with the Experiencer Resource Team? Like, what pushed you towards that as well? Because that's a separate thing in MUFON. There's like these different groups you can join within the organization, so that one's very specific.
Right. Now, see, I never had a UFO sighting prior to joining MUFON, but I've had experiences of weird things happen to me throughout my life. And I'm
Okay.
actually learning more about that now as time goes on. Every day I'm learning more new stuff about it. I've had things happen throughout my life that just kind of don't make sense. And I guess ever since I joined MUFON and started working with individuals, interviewing people, I started realizing that maybe these things that have happened to me aren't really what I thought it was. Usually we think right away, okay, it's God looking over us, or that's how we relate to things because that's what we're taught, right?
Right.
When I was young, I think I was like 3 or 4 years old, and somehow I sleptwalk up in our top apartment, third floor, unlocked our door, which I could not reach at the time. And I was downstairs knocking on my cousin's door on the second floor. And the next thing I know, I'm waking up on the couch watching TV with my cousin at 3 a.m. in the morning.
Weird.
And this completely, I'm thinking, okay, I just slept walk, but I was not able to reach the locks on the door. And even when my parents said that, and they're like, oh, well, you must have just somehow did it, and that's kind of how we just shoved it off. So things like that. And even when I was, I'm in the process of writing a book right now for Philip Mantle and Flying This Press, and I'm kind of going through all my experiences I've had when I was young. But also another one is, when I looked for Santa Claus when I was 2 or 3 years old. On Christmas Eve, if we were going to or from a family member's house, we'd always look up in the sky and see if we see Santa flying, going to other kids' houses. And there was a moment when we were parked at a stoplight and I seen a light come out of the sky, and my parents seen it as well. And it was really odd. It didn't have the normal FAA standard lights with the red and green. It was just a white light, and it came down. It got larger and blew up like this, went back up in the sky and came back down again, and then went back up and disappeared. So these are the things that I'm finding out happening. And then, probably right before I joined MUFON, I had a major experience in my room, had it remote viewed. I had information given to me about what it might have been. I was supposedly, portal was opened up in my room, and something came to me and it's trying to show me a location, which was described as a hill or a mountain with a river or a lake at the bottom of it. And I have no idea what this means. And this is what I've been woken up in the middle of the night multiple times. I bring my cat in my room with me during this event that was happening during a couple-week period. And my cat would always see things in the room, and I'd be sitting there on my bed reading a book, and she'd be at the bottom of my bed watching things happen. And they say animals can see things on a different frequency than what humans can see, dogs, cats, and she was obviously watching something moving around. So I kind of told some people that I was involved with at the time, and let them know. And they said, well, maybe you're having experiences, so just start to pay attention a little more. And so every night I allowed the cat to come into my room, and she would see these things walking around. And it's like as if somebody was walking in my room from the same area that the remote viewer told me this portal was. And I never described my room for the remote viewer. So everything kind of clicked into place. And it was real strange because, I didn't believe in remote viewing and all that. And until it happened, it kind of blew my mind. And she described this being as something that she has never seen before. Her name is Margie Kay. She's actually the assistant state director for MUFON in Missouri. And she does remote viewing. And she told me this being was probably about 8 feet tall, long arms, long fingers, and was just trying to get my attention to show me this place. And that's the information I was given. And ever since then, I've kind of been on this, whatever you want to call it, trying to figure out what this is. And during that time, between then and now, I've had dreams of being at this place, but each dream is different. One time I'll be back in the military training, and we'll be doing tightrope over the river, coming from the mountain. Or I'll be in another dream with my family on the side of the river with the mountain there, camping with my family like we used to do back in the day. And I still haven't been able to figure out exactly what they're trying to show me. So I've had some stuff recently happen to me. About 4 nights ago, I couldn't tell if I was dreaming or if it was real. So I keep a journal. I always keep a journal and try to remember everything that happens to me so I can put it in place. And I was being pulled out of bed, either in a dream or it was real, I could not tell, by my leg at one point, and I'd find myself on the floor and have to wake up and get back on the bed. Same thing with my arm, I'd be pulled off the bed. So I'm trying to figure all this out, and it's a crazy event that's happened to me, and I really don't know what it's about. So that's kind of what made me get into the ERT field, because it's a lot of the same stuff that these experiencers are experiencing that I'm experiencing. And I kind of want to get to the bottom of it in a sense, you know?
Yeah, well, it's kind of the same thing as the Skinwalker Ranch. There's like a hitchhiker effect to it, and I'm almost wondering if, because you're involved in so many cases with MUFON, if you haven't picked up a hitchhiker type effect that
Right.
comes along with this, because obviously if it's taken place in Skinwalker and people that work on Skinwalker, including, you know, George and Colm Kelleher, saying, look, we've had stuff come back with us, like weird events that have taken place at home because we've been investigating this location. Could be that it's something similar to somebody who's getting, you know, more and more involved into investigating into this, pick up some sort of hitchhiker effect, right? So
Right.
yeah, I'm just
And I've had people tell me that. They're saying, "Hey, Jesse, you realize that you jumped in feet first. You're investigating sightings for people. You're getting involved in other ways too, and they might see your frequency or your antenna up, and they might be jumping on you because you're open to this."
right.
So I've had many people tell me that, which so you're telling me now too. So
Yeah.
I found it really
it's
interesting when we interviewed George Knapp and Colin Kelleher, but mainly George Knapp, because he's been a nuts and bolts UFO guy for decades, like since the
right.
80s. And then, getting into different areas of things, starts researching Skinwalker Ranch. Next thing you know, his own mind is blown, because he's like, it's not just UFOs. We're talking cryptids, Bigfoot, blue orbs in the sky, portals, changes in temperature, poltergeist activity. It's like everything all at once. And
Yep.
now there's nobody knows if they're connected. Are these things just one of many things that go on, or bump in the night kind of thing? Or is there some kind of connection? So the closer we thought we were getting to the answer, now it's just getting more and more abstract and deeper down the rabbit hole. And it's becoming increasingly difficult to wrap your mind around, like, what the hell is actually going on?
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree completely.
That's why it bugs me whenever you see an article and it says UFO expert says,
Yeah.
and I hate that. Like, we're all students of this. There's no UFO expert. There's nobody who's going to kind of come out that has all the answers, right?
Yeah, nobody.
No, even the organization MUFON. I mean, we're all students. All we're doing is taking down the data, capturing what we can capture, and then try, to eliminate what it could be. That's the problem, and some people don't know that. The bulk of our job is to say, was it a celestial object? Were you looking at something that could be explained? We're trying to knock out all the stuff that could possibly have led to that sighting. And I've had a case here, Jesse, people saw 3 lights at 3 different times during their walk. Turned out it was one of those firefighter planes that comes down and swoops water from the lake.
Okay.
So that's what they saw. They saw this light coming towards the lake. Then they saw 2 lights crisscrossing in the sky that were really, really bright. One of them was an airplane. The other one was the International Space Station. So, once we can rule that out and make this extraordinary sighting for these people and bring it down to actually, this is what you saw, this is what you saw, that's primarily our job at MUFON, is to try to identify it. It's when we can identify that it gets fun, right? That's when it becomes, you can actually write in your report, this is unidentified, I can't
Yeah.
pin it down to what it is. Those are fun. But yeah, have you had a case at all where somebody really fought you on something that was plain and simple, that it was a plane or simple, but they still
That's
fought you
funny.
on it?
It's funny you asked this question, because the case before the one I'm working on with the nuclear stuff, it was a lady and her boyfriend, and they were down by the Delaware River in Philadelphia, and there's a bridge there. And during the night, they have different lights all over the bridge and on different sides of the river. And she saw this object. Well, they took pictures. They didn't see the object when they were taking the picture, but afterwards, when they looked at them, they found a light in the sky. Now, what I found out was, I ran it through a couple different programs, found out that it was a reflection from one of these lights in the sky. And even the data, the programs that I ran it through was telling me this.
Yeah.
And it even matched the same color as one of the lights across the river on a building. Now, once I sent that in, the lady immediately responded with an email. And I mean, it was the worst. I mean, she really came at me hard.
Yeah.
And she was telling me that I don't know what I'm talking about. She's been a big fan of MUFON for years. And now that she's had this happen to her, she's going to not refer everybody to MUFON anymore. And she's really upset about the findings. And I easily try to explain things. I always send a letter. once I get my disposition on my case. And I try to explain exactly how I found the answer to your case. And even with that, and I tried to talk to her a little more, she completely knocked me off and wouldn't answer me anymore. So
Yeah.
I try to do the best I can. And, I've had people in the past thank me for letting them know that it's something that was easily identified and that we
Yeah.
do the work to find that out. And it's a shame that people get that way. I feel like they feel like they're being insulted.
Yeah.
That you know what I mean? But it's not like that, because people really aren't informed and don't have the knowledge of this kind of stuff that occurs on an everyday basis that will be easily seen as a UFO when it's not,
Yeah.
So it's hard.
I remember a car trip when I was a kid. I was about maybe 8 years old, and we just went out for a cruise one night, and my mom's freaking out because there's this light that keeps appearing and disappearing every once in a while in this cloud that's quite close to us. And she's freaking out and, oh my God, Eve, what is that? My dad, of course. And he's like, I don't know, because he's blind as a bat. He can't see anything, right? And it turned out it was just the local airport that had that flashing light that goes around. And it was just flashing every once in a while in that cloud. But she was adamant, for quite some, freaking everybody out in the car, that there was this light above us. So, I even got caught on that. That's what made me join MUFON. I woke up at 1 o'clock at night. I went outside and there's this bright light that just pops out of nowhere and it's intense. And all of a sudden there's another bright light that pops up. And I'm like, oh my God, capturing on my phone. You could hear me breathing and doing the commentating, like it's 1 o'clock in the morning on June 21st. And, I found out later that they were just flares. There's a RCMP detachment close by, and they do the flare exercise every once in a while by the river. So what I captures were flares, right? I felt stupid, but at the same time, I'm like, I discovered what it was.
Right.
This could be simple. This is something I'm possibly able to do. So that's what pushed me towards wanting to join MUFON, was the fact that I was able to identify my own sighting. And
Right.
not freak out too much. But like I said, I got caught in it too. So I understand from their point of view what it feels like. Like, you weren't there, man. You didn't see what we saw. But
Absolutely.
yeah, just that common explanation sometimes is what we need to humble us back down, right?
Yeah, it's all about educating yourself. You know what I mean? Try to educate yourself, try to get involved and learn these things. So then when you see them, you're able to identify them. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And it's, you know,
What do you surmise from all this? I mean, based on your research and reports you've read, there's so many possibilities. Like, are these interstellar creatures traveling in craft? Are they
yeah.
interdimensional? Are they already here and they just are in the oceans or whatever? Like, what's your hypothesis on the whole alien and UAP phenomenon?
I mean, the bottom line is I know that something is here. I don't know what it is, but I know that we are being visited by obviously something that we have no idea what it is. The government's admitting that they have no idea what it is. It's not Russia or China, and it's way, way above our technology. I mean, it could be hundreds of thousands of years ahead of us. And I just feel like that we live in such a small little part of a big universe. Just like if you go into a different country, right? And you go into a rainforest, you're still going to find stuff that we have never even found
For
before in
sure.
the history books. And it's the same way in the universe. And I mean, being a part of the Planetary Society, we there's 30 million Earth-like planets, and each one of those has two different other planets surrounding them that could have life on. I mean, if you just think if that's just one, and it could be microbial, it could be anything, and it could have been so far advanced ahead of us that we have no idea. The possibilities are endless. So I do believe that there is something out there that is visiting us, whether it could even be us in the future. I mean, a lot of I investigated the early airship sightings back from, I think it was like the end of the 1800s, the early 1909. And these people seeing these craft with people that look just like them. And they would just land and hurry up and do some stuff, and they would make contact with these people. And it just makes me think that maybe, okay, we've been here before and we're coming back in time to try to either observe and see what we did wrong or see what we can fix. But there's always that possibility that there are other creatures out there and other things that we just don't know about, just like when we go and we tag cattle or we tag pigs. They're doing the same thing when you hear people say, yeah, I was taken in a ship and I was operated on, where an implant was placed in me. Dr. Roger Lear, I mean, he describes this stuff so good in his book. And what it's made out of, these implants are made out of meteorites. I mean, there's no, we can't do that.
Yeah.
So, I mean, if you really do your work and your due diligence and you look into this stuff, you're going to see that there's something to it, you know. What it is, I don't know exactly, but I know that something is happening.
Well, what's fascinating about, talking with people that have had close encounters or abductions is that every single time they're aboard a ship, there's a room specifically designed with a medical table to have a human on it and have devices and all sorts of technological advancement come out of the walls and implant things or put needles in them. These
Right.
ships are designed to do stuff with us. So, if they're interdimensional, then that means that there's an intention back there. If they're extraterrestrial, well, it seems like it's either the shape of a human body is common throughout the universe, or they're specifically here to do something with us. So that's a common thing with these ships, is that there's always a room for that. Now, there's no cafeteria, there's no bathrooms. Right? These things don't seem to need to go to the bathroom, or they have a base close by, so they don't.
Maybe
need to
they
worry
just
about
never
that
showed
stuff, right?
anybody the bathroom. Like maybe it's for
Right,
staff
right.
only.
Yeah, maybe it just comes out of the walls. Like we
You're
don't
gonna
know.
be here 10 minutes. No,
Yeah.
you can't use the bathroom. All right. You go to the grocery store, they won't even let you use the bathroom. So I get that part.
You're gonna make a mess like last time. You're
Yeah,
not
you
using
humans
the
pee
bathroom.
everywhere. You
Yeah.
cannot use our can.
Just
Can't make it in a hole.
Yeah. But I thought that was fascinating because, even the sports model, as Bob Lazar calls it, like they seem to be, that one doesn't have any rooms to operate people on. It seems like it's just like a cruiser. But it's interesting, like you hear about the details, like people are saying that, oh, it's the walls run into the floor runs into the ceiling, there's no cracks anywhere, there's no seams. And
Right.
it sounds like,
Right.
yeah, and now we're able to do that with 3D printing, right? We're able to
Mhm.
create this stuff and there's no seams anywhere, it's all connected. And there's those little details that you hear every once in a while from these abductees that you're like, there's a common thread throughout this. So I think eventually we'll
Absolutely.
catch on to what this phenomenon is about. But until then, yeah, sleep tight.
Yeah. I mean, one of the big things that I'm working on now is it's called Project Battech 404.
Okay.
It's a project that I founded and handpicked the team, and we're actually looking at electrical malfunctions that are associated with these UFO sightings and encounters. We created an entire database just like MUFON has but it's all EM encounters. And we kind of want to understand their technology and how they're affecting our technology.
Right.
And that will kind of give us an understanding of how far ahead they are, what they're working with, and why they're doing it. We've had so many different people report to us, plus we're doing historical cases, and we've had other organizations doing this. We're actually working with CUFOS at the moment with their
Nice.
electrical malfunction stuff. We have some scientists from the Canadian Space Agency and aerospace people that have joined the project already as well. I have an assistant director, a couple different people, and we're building an entire database and finding these similarities with people that have had these events happen to them, and for how long. We're finding that there's a range that they have to be in order to affect our technology. And I just feel that ever since that day when I had my sighting and my phone went wacky, it kind of gave me the inspiration for this project, and it's just grown so much. And I think it's just one aspect of us understanding this phenomenon in general, if we kind of look at that technology aspect. So
Right.
it's pretty cool.
And our technology is so basic probably for them that it's not hard for them to just knock it out, right?
Right.
It's not like we have anything impressive. We're just at the start of our scientific awakening. They're light years, probably thousands of years ahead of us. Or it's a possibility that you can have two species that start at the same time. It's just one's way much smarter and develops faster and better technology than the other one. The other one's quite slow at it, right? So that's
Right.
another option that we have to look at as well. Is but either way, they're more advanced. So our technology seems to dwindle compared to theirs and doesn't seem to work at all, right?
Right. But we did find out diesel engines. Okay. I think it was 1974. But before that time, UFOs were not able to affect diesel engines. And we've had sightings where diesel and combustion engines were sitting right next to each other. And the combustion engine would shut down all the electronics. But in the diesel engine, the radio would shut down the lights, but the engine would not shut down. And what we found out is that diesel engines usually take one spark, and then once it's started, it continues to run and run and run. It doesn't need that electric. But in 1974, I think that's the year, they actually came out with new emission standards that needed to update these engines. And from that point on, once they made these new emission standards, the engines were able to be affected during normal UFO events. So what we're trying to look at right now is how these diesel engines were actually built back in the day, to see if maybe we can figure out what didn't make that be affected and how we can implement that today to stop that from happening in the future. So there's a lot of different cool little aspects into this.
Yeah, that's cool. I didn't know that that was a thing. So 1974 is when they made that switch.
Yeah, I believe it was 1974, somewhere around there. Yeah, it's on the website. I forget the exact year, but it was in the 70s. Yeah.
Oh, that's cool.
You mentioned the cell phones going crazy, and we had Thomas Winterton from the Skinwalker Ranch program on our show. And one of their episodes, one of their crew had a phone that went bananas, and it was like breaking the password, opening all the apps at the same time, going nuts. And Thomas said, like, we got a lot of bad fan mail from people being like, well, it was a broken screen and this and that, like as if a broken screen is enough for somebody to break Apple's security. But so they got a lot of flack for that. And then he said there's also been other times where he was in presence of that guy's phone. Like they didn't film it every single time it did it, especially when they got a shitty backlash from people saying, oh, it's fake or whatever. But he even said, he's like, that guy had a broken screen, yes, but it was an Apple product. He goes, I've been beside him with my Android and mine was doing the same thing. So it's not limited to just one guy with a wonky phone. It's localized, but it could be multiple people that are able to observe that at the same time. So I thought that was pretty interesting.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that once it's happening in a certain area, they're obviously doing it to stop us from being able to observe them, is what we're kind of getting out of this. This way we can't take videos or certain things like that, but everybody within that entire area, their electronics are going to malfunction. So I completely agree with that. And that's exactly how my phone was acting. You could see it hitting the code buttons a million times over and over and different screen changing. And it's fascinating. And that's why we started this project, to be able to figure out what this is and how it's affecting, it's cool.
That's cool about the diesel engine.
Yeah,
that's cool. I didn't know that.
And CUFOS helped us figure that out, but they didn't know why all of a sudden after the 1970s it stopped. And once we did our research into that, we're kind of using each other's research in that and moving forward to be able to give this information to the public. And once they told us that, we were able to find out that the emission standards were put in place that year to change how the diesel engine actually ran for emission standards. So it's great. We'll see, that's the beauty of it. When people work together and different organizations put their knowledge together, we can find all these different missing pieces that the others didn't have and give better research and data to the public.
Well, you look at older vehicles too. It's mainly carburation and very low amounts of electronics, right? Then you get into electronic fuel injection and distributor caps and rotors and all that, and now ignition coils and everything now. I mean, we have connections in the automotive business, and nobody has any vehicles on their lot because there's no microchips, because even your window switch has a chip in it. Your knob on your radio has a chip. I mean, the average car has probably 30 computers if it's got some high-end tech, not to mention how many little microprocessors that all feed into those computers, right? And sensors to keep your vehicle running smooth, emission, compliant, and that type of thing. But it's basically, before it used to be a vehicle that had computers. Now it's a computer with four wheels.
Yeah.
And hence is the massive vehicle shortage that's happening North America wide right now.
Yeah. They don't make nothing like it used to be. My first car was a 1989 Cadillac Brougham, all metal. You know what I mean? It was a boat. And my girlfriend at the time, she had like brand new 2019 Ford Fusion, and it doesn't even compare. So there's a big difference, and that also makes a difference in the data as well.
Well, even was talking to a coworker this week, and he said, just think about 5 years of the evolution of the drone. Like, you had the original drone and, connect to the satellites, but it didn't do anything really, really fancy. Now it's to the point where it's idiot proof. Like you just put glasses on and the drone does most of the work itself. If you're too close to a tree, it backs up. It comes back to you if it gets out of range. Like there's just so much growth within such a small amount of years for this drone. So you got to think, that's the same thing with the evolution of the drone. Think about how far from 20 years from now, what we're going to be able to do with these things, right? So technology plays a big part. One thing I want to ask you, I've always wanted to do a cattle mutilation. Have you ever had one?
No, I
You mean
haven't.
actually do a cattle mutilation, like
Well, not
melon
actually.
ball the eyes out and
Yeah,
all that?
exactly.
Is that what you mean?
Bring out my knives. No, but I've always wanted to investigate one. I've never got my, there's not much activity in BC right now with cattle mutilations, unfortunately. But I just was wondering if
We're
you
eating
ever
them
had
too
a chance.
fast, man.
Yeah,
No
I know
time to count
exactly.
up. We're
Wait,
getting
where are
them
you from?
first.
What state?
BC, British Columbia,
Okay,
in
okay,
Canada.
okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, no, I haven't had any, and I've been dying to go because I got a smart telescope or microscope, and with the attachment for the smartphone, so I could take pictures and send it to the lab. And I've been dying to get a case like that, man. Go out in
Yeah.
the field and take some, materials and do all that, So
Got to
I'm
call
ready for
Linda
it.
Moulton Howe. She'll
Yeah,
hook you up with some cattle mutilation stories.
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, that's how I even thought the drone would come in handy, because you could get some, before you approach the site, you can actually get a good aerial view of what happened. So
Yeah,
that's a fun
we got
part
to get
about
on the STAR team too. That'll be,
the
the
Star
strike team.
team. Is yeah, these guys are crazy because they'll actually go out, like if they get a call, they'll leave at a moment's notice,
Yep.
get it on a plane and go to your location and go do their investigation, which I can't do that. I just don't have the time to do that. But I'm amazed that people actually are part of this team and that they'll
Yeah.
relocate within a matter of hours to your location to come see what took place, especially if there's something significant, like something landed or anything like that in your backyard. They're there.
Yeah.
Which, yeah, like I said, there's different for the listeners. There's definitely different levels in different groups that you can do within MUFON.
Yeah.
I always encourage people to definitely join the organization because it's a great way to start, to get cases, to you know build a career of investigations, especially if you've always been a couch investigator and you want to get yourself out there. MUFON is definitely the place to start. Before we go, let's talk about UFO Encounters Worldwide podcast. When did that start?
That started, we just started 1 year, I think in April, the end of April.
Congratulations.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Yeah. And it was just one of those things where I was like, maybe I can just, get some information out to about 10 people a week if they want to listen to the episode, and I'd be happy with that. And I started doing episodes by myself, and then I was like, let's get some guests on. And now we're a year later, and I'm on KGRA digital broadcasting now, and I got 3 different sponsors, and it's blowing up big, and
Yeah.
I couldn't be happier. Um, so it's just something that has really gotten to the point where I never would have imagined that it would have got to. We have our website now, all kinds of stuff. It's really good, and the listeners are really good supporters of the show as well.
Yeah, no, we definitely recommend your podcast. You got some great guests, some good content on there as well. What are some of your favorite guests that you've had on so far?
Peter Robbins was absolutely amazing. We had him, we had Tom Carey, Don Schmidt, Kevin Randall, Mark D'Antonio, Cheryl Costa. I mean, it just goes on and on. Tons of research. Philip Mantle, who is someone that I'm very dear and close with. He's my publisher as well. So, I mean, there's just so many different people in different aspects. And I mean, I just started having paranormal people on and Bigfoot people on. Documentary filmmakers. So I try to hit it all, you know what I mean? And try to get the information out. And I also had this year we started our experiencer month. So we had all month long, we had different experiencers that wanted to tell their stories for the first time, which was really successful. They really enjoyed coming on and being able to tell their stories in a safe environment, and feel okay to tell it. So that was cool. And then we also celebrated the month before that, women in the field. So different ufologists and paranormal investigators that are women, and celebrate them because there's not enough of them in the field.
Agreed.
So we're just trying to help in any way we can. And we're also starting a new project, which is called the UAP Medical Coalition, which is just starting. We just started our Twitter account. And it's Ted Rowe, the director of NARCAP, myself, and another individual that are the founders of it, and we're putting a team together, and we're going to help try to brief medical professionals on how to maybe help or assist people that have been affected by the UAP experience, experiencers and such, because usually when people that are experiencers go to a medical professional and say, hey, I've had aliens abducting me, they have no idea, and they usually misdiagnose people.
Hmm.
So our goal is to we have medical professionals on our team to help brief these medical professionals that have no idea how to help them. So that's kind of where we're at right now, and we're starting that up. We're putting a forum together right now as well. So if you just follow us on the Twitter account, I think it's UAPMC, and the website will be out soon. So we're doing a lot of different stuff this year, and Project Battech that's been going. We started that October 2021, and I mean, we've had a lot of people reporting to a private email. It's secure. It can be anonymous. So a lot of different stuff going on. Pretty busy.
Yeah, I bet. Louis, do you have any final questions for our guest today?
No, we just want to extend a big thanks to Jesse Peak for being on the show. It's always interesting to get the perspective of MUFON investigators, guys that are, better trained observers than the average Joe. You do a lot of work, a lot of thankless work. You probably get a lot of flack too, as you mentioned earlier.
Yeah.
People don't believe your synopsis, regardless of your credentials. So it's a tough job. You take a head kicking. Jason knows all about that as well. But
Yeah.
we just want to say thanks for coming on the show, taking time out of your schedule, and sharing little tidbits with our audience. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you. It was an honor to come on and be able to chat with you guys and have a good conversation. And maybe we'll do it again sometime. So thank you.